In this session, I will discuss with you about unemployment, a key macroeconomic indicator. As far as our discussion is concerned, we will touch upon a few things like how unemployment is measured conceptually, as well as in India and in USA. We would discuss about the various typologies of unemployment. We would describe the concept of full employment and the natural rate of unemployment. Let us begin by defining unemployment, or how unemployment is measured conceptually. Conceptually, unemployment rate is that proportion of labor force which is interested to work but doesn't get work. So when we are talking about the unemployment rate, we are not talking about the entire population. We are talking about the labor force. Once somebody is in the labor force, that means he is offering himself for work. There are two possibilities. One, the person gets employment. The other, the person remains unemployed, though he is available for work. If we take the entire population as the larger set, from that the labor force will be a subset, and labor force would broadly consist of two categories: either you are employed or you are unemployed. And the unemployment rate is nothing but the proportion of labor force which remains unemployed. So as far as measurement is concerned, unemployment is generally assessed through household surveys, household employment unemployment surveys. In the advanced economies, especially in US and Europe, unemployment numbers or unemployment rates are released every month. Unlike in the advanced countries, getting monthly unemployment rate is a major challenge. In the recent times, the attempt has been made is to get payroll data on a monthly basis, but that is of relatively recent origin. Maybe last 5-6 months back this initiative has started. But the payroll status tells about how many people are employed. It doesn't tell us about the state of unemployment. Now if we want to form an idea about the state of unemployment, the recourse is to undertake a household survey and to ask people whether they were willing to work, or were they available for work. And if they say yes, they are considered to be a part of the labor force. If they say they are not a part of the they are not available for work, then they are not considered to be a part of the labor force. And once you are in the labor force, the question then is, if you were available for work, did you get work? And the answer is yes, the person is treated as employed. In US, the standard practice is to survey around 60,000 households on a monthly basis to get an idea about the unemployment rate. As far as India is concerned, we get unemployment data from the surveys conducted by NSSO, the National Sample Survey Office, but generally these are quinquennial surveys undertaken once in every 5 years. And the latest numbers that we have is for 2011-12, when NSS undertook its 68th round of survey. And as per that survey, the unemployment rate is defined in three different ways. First is the current daily status, then as per the current weekly status, and the usual status. Generally, when we talk about the persons remaining unemployed, that idea is given by the usual status and the current weekly status, whereas the current daily status gives the unemployment rate in terms of person days rather than in terms of persons. Now, how these different measures of unemployment differ? They differ in terms of the reference period in which they are tracking the status of unemployment. Now, typically what happens, surveyors from NSSO approach a household and ask them about the status of their employment and unemployment in the last 365 days, in the last 7 days, and each day of the last week. The unemployment as per the usual status is obtained by asking what the person did in the last 365 days, and was he available for work. Yeah, if he says he was available for work, he is considered to be a part of the labor force. Then if he was a part of the labor force, the person is asked, did he work for the major part of the year? That means major part of the year means 6 months or more. Did he get work for 6 months or more? And if the answer is yes, he is considered to be employed as per the usual status. That means the general or the normal status of the person is that he is employed. And as per this measure of unemployment as per the usual status, the unemployment rate is really low. It's around 3% in India in 2011-12. Now, apart from asking the question about the employment status in the last 365 days, and the criteria which is used to label somebody as employed or unemployed is the majority time criterion. What did he do for the major part of the year? Did he work or not? Now, coming to the current weekly status, the reference period becomes the last 7 days or in the last 1 week preceding the date of survey. So if the survey is done today, the question that is asked is, did the person made himself available for work in the last 7 days? And if the answer is yes, the next question which is asked, did he get work for even 1 hour in the last 7 days? And if the answer is yes, the person is categorized as employed. Now, while measuring unemployment as per the current weekly status, the priority criterion is used. That means the status of employment even for 1 hour gets priority over not being employed at all. Now, the people who are otherwise employed as per the usual status, but when they tell that they did not work even for 1 hour in the last 1 week, it may connote two things. It either connotes seasonality in unemployment, or it connotes the severe underemployment that is prevailing in the economy. That means though the person was employed on major part of the year, there are patches of time in which he remains completely unemployed. So this in a way talks about the state of the underemployment in the economy. Now, if we look at the third measure of unemployment, which is the current daily status, while measuring unemployment as per the current daily status, the question is asked for each day of the last week. In other words, each day is divided into two half days. So in the last week there would be 7 days, means there would be 14 half days. So the question is asked, out of the 14 half days, how many half days the person was available for work? And suppose he says he was available for work for 10 half days, and then the labor force part would consist of 10 half days, and he is further asked that out of these 10 half days, how many half days he got work. And if he says he got work for 8 half days, then the 2 half days per which he did not get work, he would be counted as unemployed. So 2 upon 10 will be an indicator of unemployment. Now, the issue is when we are tracking unemployment as per the current daily status, we are asking this question to different people over a period of time, because the NSSO surveys are undertaken over a period of 1 year divided into different sub rounds, and in each sub round different people are asked the questions about what they did in the last 7 days. Because it is a revolving sample, we are not getting information about persons, but rather we are getting information about person days when we are measuring unemployment as per the current daily status. Now, if the unemployment rate as per the current daily status turns out to be 8%, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that 8% of the labor force remained unemployed on a chronic basis or on a long-term basis or on a perennial basis. what it tells that on a given day 8% of the labor force generally remains unemployed. So today it could be a group of people which consist of 8% of the labor force. Tomorrow it could be another set of people again consisting of 8% of the labor force. So please remember, when we are talking about unemployment scenario in India, if you are interested to get one number which talks about how many people remain chronically unemployed, the measure which is to be used is the unemployment as per the usual status. But if somebody is interested to get an idea about seasonality of unemployment, then the or about underemployment, the unemployment measure to be used is the current weekly status. And if somebody is interested to know how many people on an average on a given day remain unemployed, the answer one can get by using the current daily status. And generally the current daily status numbers turn out to be much higher compared to the usual status unemployment numbers. Now, as far as the various typologies of unemployment is concerned, broadly there are three categories of unemployment that would be relevant for our discussion, which is the frictional unemployment, the structural unemployment, and the cyclical unemployment. Now, frictional unemployment, what it is and how it is different from structural unemployment. Please take note of the fact that the book that I have given you, ManQ, the essential reading. Now, in that book, the way frictional unemployment is described is not the way many textbooks define frictional unemployment. As far as frictional unemployment and structural unemployment are concerned, there is a difference in the way different textbooks treat these two concepts. Broadly, many textbooks consider unemployment arising out of sectoral shifts or changing importance of different industries in the economy as structural unemployment, but we would consider unemployment arising out of sectoral shifts as frictional unemployment. Now, what frictional unemployment is? Frictional unemployment is the unemployment arising out of the fact that people are between the jobs. That means somebody may have the necessary the capabilities and education and qualifications, but he may be trying for something better, and before he takes up the new job there is a period of time for which he remains unemployed. That is the easier part of categorizing frictional unemployment. The not so easy part can be better appreciated if you remember the fact that the demand for labor is a derived demand, and ultimately employment takes place because there is a demand for labor. And demand for labor, please remember that it is a derived demand. Nobody demands labor or nobody hires somebody for the sake of it. People are hired because they will be engaged in producing some good or service, and because there is a demand for a particular product or service in the market, and to provide that product or service you require manpower, and that leads to creation of employment. Now, we know that with changing preferences, changing technology, people's consumption pattern do change, and as the consumption pattern changes, so also the need for goods and services of different industries. In other words, textile industry, which maybe 100 years back was the dominant industry in most of the industrialized countries, if you consider now, after a century, maybe it is aircrafts, high-end telecom, aviation that has gained prominence in the last couple of decades. So if you look at the employment pattern, it would reflect that the textile industry, which used to be generating a lot of employment in the say maybe 100 years back, is no more employs that many people. Rather, more employment opportunities are found and in the sectors that I just outlined: aviation, telecom, and the IT industry. Now, when the demand for a particular industry's product increase, naturally you require more factors of production to produce that good or service, and which leads to higher employment in that segment of the economy. Now, the industries which are losing the favor of customers, now people who are engaged in those industries, they need to be reskilled, or they need to be retooled, and they have to look for newer opportunities in the rising industries which have a better future, so that they can be gainfully employed. Now, it is not necessary that a person who was employed in the textile industry, maybe in India, maybe 30 years or 40 years back in the Western India, when the textile industry lost its glamour and IT industry got into prominence. It is not that the person who was employed in the textile industry makes a smooth transition to the IT industry. Some people may not be having the required education, may not be having the required skills. Now, the unemployment which is arising because of your lack of fit with the industry's requirement, you may be unemployed. And the unemployment which is because of sectoral shifts in the economy, changing importance of different industries, and inability of a certain segment of the labor force to meet the requirement of the new industry. The unemployment which is arising because of this is categorized as frictional unemployment. Many books consider this unemployment which is arising out of sectoral shifts as structural unemployment. Please remember very clearly, I am not considering it as structural unemployment, but we are treating it as frictional unemployment. Now, the question arises then, what we mean by structural unemployment? Now, structural unemployment is there when in the labor market wages remain above the market clearing wages. You know that in the labor market, like demand for products, demand for labor, and the supply of labor will decide the price of labor, which is nothing but the wages. Wages are the price of labor, which is governed by the demand for and supply of labor. Now, if the actual wages that prevail in the markets is the equilibrium wage, which brings about equality between supply and demand for labor, then we should not be finding any unemployment in the economy. But we find that because of certain reasons, the actual wage that prevail in the economy is above the market clearing wage. And because the actual wage is above the market clearing wage, you find the supply of labor is more as compared to the demand for labor, and this demand supply mismatch leads to unemployment and unemployment in the economy. And this unemployment, or the unemployment which is arising because actual wages remain out, or when actual wages remain above the market clearing wage or the equilibrium wage, we categorize that unemployment as the structural unemployment. In simple words, structural unemployment occurs in the economy because of rigidities in the labor market, because the mechanism of wage rate is not able to bring about an equilibrium between demand and supply for labor. You find there is excess supply of labor at the actual market wage compared to the demand, and which leads to unemployment of a certain segment of the labor force. And this unemployment we are categorizing as structural unemployment. So we have just discussed two categories of unemployment: frictional and the structural. Now, if I take the frictional unemployment and structural unemployment, if I add them, I will get what is known as the natural rate of unemployment. And why we call it as the natural rate of unemployment? It would be also fine if we call it as the normal rate of unemployment. The technical jargon which is used to describe the normal rate of unemployment is the natural rate of unemployment. And what is natural about the natural rate of unemployment, if you ask me? Well, there is nothing natural about the natural rate of unemployment. It is not a God-given number. It can be said as the normal rate of unemployment at a given point of time, whether you like it or not. You would find some unemployment in the economy. You would find that a part of the labor force is remaining unemployed, either because people are between the jobs or because of sectoral shifts, because people are taking time to retool themselves, reskill themselves, and those would be the category of frictional unemployment. And also there is some unemployment in the economy because of rigidities in the labor market, which causes the actual wage to be above the market clearing wage, which gives rise to structural unemployment. And these two categories of unemployment, whether we like it or not, we would find it at any point of time in an economy. The extent, of course, may vary, and nobody knows what is the natural rate of unemployment. It is only an estimate. And if we say that the frictional unemployment rate in the economy is 2% and the structural unemployment rate is 3%, then the natural rate of unemployment would be 5%. So what the natural rate of unemployment is telling is that at a given point of time, 5% of the labor force remain unemployed. Whatever we do, immaterial of that, then in the normal course of things, 5% of the labor force will remain unemployed. Now, the natural rate of unemployment is also considered as the full employment. That means if the actual, suppose we have estimated that the natural rate of unemployment is 5% and the actual unemployment rate, which when measured turns out to be 5%, we say that the economy is operating at full employment. And the issue of cyclical unemployment comes when we find that the actual unemployment rate is above the natural rate of unemployment. Suppose the actual unemployment rate, when we undertook the household survey, we found that the actual unemployment rate is say 7%. But we have estimated that for this economy, the natural rate of unemployment is only 5%. So this excess 2% of unemployment that we are finding in actual market, this excess unemployment is categorized as cyclical unemployment. Now, cyclical unemployment can be positive or negative. Suppose we find that when we did the survey that the actual unemployment rate turns out to be only 4%. Now, my natural rate of unemployment is 5%. So what I am getting is, in fact, the cyclical unemployment has declined from the earlier system of 2% to say -1%. So what is the cyclical unemployment rate? You would be better able to appreciate when you imagine that the economy is going through either a boom or a recession at different points in time. Suppose we know that the potential growth rate or the sustainable growth rate in the economy is 6%. Now, because of there was stimulus given by the government, the actual growth rate turns out to be say 8%. Now, this excess growth compared to what is sustainable or what is the potential growth rate, this excess growth leads to more demand. This excess growth is coming because of increased production, and this increased production is causing more factors of production to be engaged than what is normally is done in the economy. So this excess engagement of factors of production leads to a situation where the actual unemployment rate is below the normal unemployment rate or the natural rate of unemployment. Now, it may so happen that suppose the stimulus which is given to the economy is also coinciding with a phase that technological progress is taking place in the economy, so that the potential growth rate itself has shifted to 8%, then you would find that the natural rate of unemployment, instead of being 5%, perhaps has itself come down to 4%, so that the cyclical unemployment is zero. In other words, we are saying that the natural rate of unemployment or the potential growth rate of the economy, these are not static concepts, these are all dynamic concepts. When productivity of an economy increases, the growth potential of an economy increases, more factors of production can be gainfully engaged. You may find the natural rate of unemployment itself may undergoing a shift. Now, the natural rate of unemployment can change because of government policies also. We would discuss about how government policies impact the natural rate of unemployment in more detail in the class. Now, coming back to cyclical unemployment, the cyclical unemployment is the unemployment which is arising because of business cycles. Now, what is business cycle? Business cycle is nothing but the study of economic fluctuations. Now, when the growth in the economy fluctuates around a trend growth rate, suppose we take last 20 years or last 30 years growth of the Indian economy, it will turn out to be around say 6.8 to 7%. Maybe let us consider for our discussion 7%. Now, we find that on an average in the last 30 years, the annual growth rate has been 7%. But if we consider the growth in a particular year, it can be above 7% or it can be below 7%. Now, if it is say at 5%, then we are finding that many resources which otherwise should be employed remains unemployed, and which may give rise to a actual unemployment rate above the natural rate of unemployment. If the actual unemployment rate is say 7%, whereas the natural rate of unemployment is only 5%, so this excess 2% unemployment is coming out of the fluctuation in the GDP growth rate, and the fluctuation has been on the downside. Instead of a trend growth rate of 7%, the actual growth rate is only 5%. Because growth has taken a dip, we find that the need for resource utilization in the economy is relatively less, which is leading to a higher unemployment number. It can be the other way around also. If you find that the during 2004 to 8 growth averaged at around 8.5%. Now, if growth is above the trend growth rate at 8%, naturally it will require more resources to be engaged in the process of production, which may give rise to a actual unemployment rate of 3%. Now, you are finding that the actual unemployment rate is 3%, but the natural rate of unemployment is 5%, so your cyclical unemployment rate is minus 2%. So I hope it is now clear the distinction between natural rate of unemployment, actual rate of unemployment, and the natural rate of unemployment consists of the structural unemployment rate and the frictional unemployment rate, and the actual unemployment rate is nothing but the structural plus frictional plus cyclical unemployment. All these three will give the idea about the actual rate of unemployment prevailing in an economy.